Hello, and thank you for listening to Your Credit Matters. I'm your host, Ronnie Lambeth, bringing to you each and every day what I think the banks, the credit bureaus, the collection companies, the mainstream media, what they don't want you to know about your debt, your finances, your credit, and what's going on outside the world, what goes on behind closed doors, what kind of deals that these banks are making with the U.S. government. The kind of deals that most likely are probably illegal and that they don't want you to know about it. Because if you knew about it, you wouldn't reelect them next year. If you knew that they're working out side deals with these banks that take advantage of you and cost you money and increase your taxes, you most likely would not vote for them. You know, and that's what the show's about, is exposing what they don't want you to know behind closed doors. Today in the studio, I have with me attorney Sean Doan from the Doan Law Firm.
Hi, Rodney.
Thanks, Sean, for coming in.
You're welcome.
You know, Sean, you and your family have helped, 35,000 families, people here in California?
It's climbing every day.
Every day it gets bigger and bigger.
400 or 500 a month.
Can I put you on the spot with, I see lots of commercials for these attorneys out there that say that you can hire them, they'll accept your case with no money down. And yet, I look at Pacer, and I see they're not really doing a whole lot, that they're just spending a bunch of money on commercials. So here's my question. Where do you rank in San Diego with helping people get out of debt as opposed to all the other attorneys? What's your status?
I think we set ourselves apart. First, we do the most filings.
That's what I was getting at.
And I think that speaks volumes. People are coming to us.
So I wanted to get
they're referred to us.
Yeah.
They respect the name. It's a name you can trust. And that's where most of our clients are coming from. It's, to be honest with you, is from referrals. We do some marketing, but at least 50 to 60% of our clients are coming from referrals. And
I want to break that down because, you know, if you own a regular business, a 50% referrals, like for a real estate agent, that's not that big of a deal. In fact, if 50% of your business comes from referrals and that's all you get, that's really low. You're doing something wrong. But when you have a business that talks about debt, and my business with credit, and the fact that 50% of your business is coming from referrals is huge.
Right. People don't want to talk
because
about
people
that.
don't talk. Think about
like
it.
Their dirty laundry, you know?
Yeah.
Finally, and that's the big banks, you know. They want you to think that bankruptcy is bad, that, you know, that it's all about your credit and, you know, you're going to go to jail if you don't pay your debts, debtor's prison.
You know, I know with you growing up, how often did you have family dinner conversations that you talked about budgeting and finances and debt? I mean, how often did that come up in your household?
It was a nonstop discussion, you know. How much money are we spending a week on food? 5 boys, you know.
Yeah.
It's like,
and
how are we going to do this?
How long has your dad been doing the law that you guys do?
I think he passed the bar in 1993. So it was a midlife change for him. You know, he wasn't always a bankruptcy attorney.
So you were still at home. Were you still at home in 1993?
I was in high school, I think, when my dad went to law school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know when I grew up, my family never talked about debt, ever. And, you know, I do teaching through Crown Financial, and they say over 90% of families in the United States do not do a budget, do not reconcile their checkbook. It's kind of like what you don't talk about. You don't talk about how much money you owe. You don't get taught in high school, in college, graduate school, law school.
Right.
You don't get taught about money.
Right. Yeah, 95% don't do the budget, but 95% probably complain, or there's fighting about money, or you're talking about money, but it's in the sense that we don't have any, or where's it all going?
And that's what they talk about.
But they're not sitting down and actually looking at their budget and going, okay, look at, you know, our food expense a week is $200 or $300. You know, can we change that? Or why are we spending $300 a month on cable? You know,
I think it's a reactive, where they react, and you know the number one reason for divorce is finances. The number one reason that people get divorced, which is it's about 60% now in the United States, but the number one reason is over debt.
Over money.
Over money. And I think it's because when we grew up, our families did not teach us about it. You know, our teachers don't teach us about debt or how to get ahead or get out of debt. And I think it comes down to our government does not want us to be out of debt. Because if we're in debt, we have to keep working. And if we keep working,
they own us.
They own us, and we got to pay taxes. You know, I have a friend that owns the largest car dealership in the state of Colorado. And I met with him, and we were just talking one day at a barbecue over at my house. I said, how do you get so many salespeople to be so motivated? Because I get real estate agents, I can't motivate them. And here's what he told me. He goes, I sell them a new car. The first thing I do when a salesperson comes to work for me is I get them in debt. And if I can get them in debt, they'll work a lot harder than if they don't have any debt. Because they can make so much money selling cars that unless they have debt, they won't work as hard. And I think that's what our government does, is they figure if we can get people in debt, keep them in debt, we'll get in bed with the banks, then we can get more taxes. Because if you don't make any money, the government gets no taxes.
Right, the Federal Reserve.
Yeah. I mean, and so that's how the whole system fits together. So with that being said, you know, we've been talking about Chapter 7 bankruptcy, Chapter 11, 12, and 13. So I want to know, I see this all the time on credit reports when I review these credit reports for the audits to help people have a good credit score. Experian primarily will report included in Chapter 7, 11, 12, or 13 bankruptcy. So we already know what Chapter 7 is. Chapter 7 is discharging all the debt. But what's a Chapter 11, 12, or 13 bankruptcy? What's the difference between those?
It's a good question, Rondi. Chapter 11 is basically reorganization for big businesses.
So American Airlines files bankruptcy. Airlines. There you go. Okay.
Chapter 13 is the Chapter 11 equivalent for you and me. So if we needed to reorganize, consolidate our debt,
so I make
get current with our car, or pay back what we're behind on our house. You know, it's to restructure our debts. We pay them back over 3 to 5 years. And
so if I make too much money to qualify for Chapter 7, I can do a 13 and pay back my debt.
Right. You restructure, and it's court supervised, and it's to your budget, which you can afford. So you don't necessarily, you won't be required to pay back all of your debt, although
just what you can afford to pay back.
You can afford.
So it seems pretty fair system. Mm-hmm. And then a Chapter 12.
A Chapter 12 family farmer.
Okay, so that pretty much, if you're listening in San Diego, you probably are not a family farmer.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be too applicable. Maybe if you're up in Amul or Ramona and you got a big there. Yeah, I don't even think that there's probably large enough operations to qualify under the Chapter 12 farmer. Although it could be. You know, I don't practice in that area, so it's a whole specialty in of itself.
So we got a Chapter 7, we got a Chapter 11, we got Chapter 12 or Chapter 13, but really what you specialize in and what you focus on and what you participate in is Chapter 7, which discharges all debt.
That's about 80 to 85% of our cases.
With exception to a few things that are non-dischargeable. And then we have a Chapter 13 that allows you to pay back what you can afford to pay back.
Exactly.
Okay. So
they each have kind of their own little kicks and bonuses too, like Chapter 13, for instance. You can strip your second mortgage.
You know what? I want to talk about that next. So we're going to talk about that next. You know, one of the things that we do, Sean, is we are able to get items legally and permanently removed from the credit reports because...
Such as bankruptcy?
All the time.
That's incredible.
All the time. You know, and here's how we do it. Because the Experian will report on your Bank of America home mortgage that you filed Chapter 12 bankruptcy. And the Fair Credit Report Act of 1971 says the information reported has to be accurate. And if you filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, there's a world of difference between a Chapter 7 and 12, and yet that's how they're reporting it. So that's how we get it removed from the credit report. So if you're listening to the show and you have questions on credit or bankruptcy or how to get your family out of debt, give us a call, 888-900-5555. 3678. That's 888-900-3678. Or simply go to the website, badcreditisachoice.com. Again, that's badcreditisachoice.com. If you want to speak directly to Sean and his assistant to make an appointment for your free legal consultation, give him a call at 760. Sean, this is your personal line. Is it okay if I give it out?
Go ahead. Yeah, that's totally fine. That's what it's there for.
760-479-5622. That's 760-479-5622.